If, in fact, you do not win, will you keep running because it's going to come up again very soon? Is there any chance that you will continue, even if you don't win? You won't be disappointed, but you will instead try to create an aura that allows people to get behind you and support you with finances.
So in German, their response is Jein, which is yes and no. I've already signed up for the November election in this, though I need help. And I haven't given up on this fight, folks. You know, you hear about this polling that there's the top three. You know, I get these robocalls too, and they say, well, are you going to vote? Yes. And then they rattle off the candidates. They don't put my name in it. There's 3 candidates on that list. The polling is not correct, folks. This last week they had straw polls. 2 at a public forums, 1 in Naples, 1 in Cape Coral, and a 3rd on a 2-hour radio show down in Naples, the Joe Whitehead show. So the straw polls in a public forum can certainly be influenced. I used to live in Iowa for a short time, so I know the buses that come in, right? But in Naples I came in 3rd, in Cape Coral I came in 2nd. On the 2-hour radio show I was 1st. So there is this incredible groundswell that we're not hearing because all this other noise out there. Don't underestimate what can happen in this election. But I still need help. I don't need people to think, hey, if I give him my vote, I'm giving it to somebody else by proxy. Because you'll be surprised at what's going on behind the scenes. I'm in this to win it. And I will be fighting all the way until somebody kicks me out of here.
I have one other question, and then I'll shut up.
All right.
Are you still affiliated with any defense contractor?
I have no first-tier associations, but I do have like 3rd and 4th tier. Now, for example, on the F-35 and the F-22 program, part of our business is expert witness. So what we'll do is we'll do forensic review of a crash, or we'll do forensic review with regards to compliance on a contract. And I've been engaged on the F-22 quite extensively, and I've been engaged on the F-35 extensively. I've also been engaged on some Boeing issues with regards to the 737, which is now essentially the military Navy surveillance aircraft. So I still have things going on. So what does that mean if I'm elected? Is that I step away from it, and I have capable people to pick up on that job. This guy over here had his hand up, and I'll come right to you. This is the troublemaker.
Well, I see here on your list federal tax reform, and the federal government bleeds money in a lot of ways. One of them is tax cheaters. Last month, it was discovered that Credit Suisse over in Switzerland had been harboring 22,000 Americans, stashing money in their secret accounts to avoid paying taxes, straight out. It's cheating on taxes. Is part of your tax reform idea to close these things? I mean, every American needs to pay their taxes. Every business needs to pay their taxes. We got corporations making billions of dollars. Apple Computer being a big one. They're making money in America. They live in America. They make them in China, and they stash it. The companies registered in Ireland, and they stash their money in Switzerland. And you wonder why we have problems. It's not just food stamp recipients. It's people who aren't paying their taxes who should be. Are you going to give them political cover? Or are you going to go after them?
Okay, so as a individual representative in Congress, I will do everything in my power, and this is going to be consistent with whether it is tax evasion, amnesty, or anything else, is that I will enforce the rules that are on the books today. Right? The current rules in the books say that's sheltering of money and it's illegal. It needs to come back in here. Our system is premised on a process that's controlled. Right? And the process says our economy has inputs and outputs, and there's certain things that have to happen. If you start eroding the integrity of our process of government, then there's no confidence in government. There's no confidence in the economy. So we have to look for wherever there are diversions from the process and bring it back into compliance. And you know what? Sometimes the rules have to change too, but not in that case. Over here, then come over here. Sir.
Yes, sir. Everybody in the race wants to get tough on illegal immigration. According to your material back in the back there, you want to get tough on legal immigration too. What are you talking about there? And given your own family's history, history of recent immigration. Why?
Yeah. So, up until the mid-1950s, the annual number of legal immigrants was about 250,000 a year. And I just spoke about process. The process back then was essentially to have a number that was sustainable, which means that we can indoctrinate new immigrants into the American way of life. So we would convert immigrants into Americans, and that they would provide contributions to our society. They wouldn't be a drain. So they would have to be able-bodied, you know, that they have to get all the immunizations, they have to have the chest x-rays, they can't bring TB into this country, right? There's all kinds of prerequisites that we had. My dad came in the front door, he did the x-rays, he got the shots, he learned the Constitution, he was tested on every one of the Chief Justices, right? So there was an Americanization of immigrants. Today, it's over 1 million a year. So we talk about the erosion of our culture. What does it mean to be an American? Well, we're losing our identity because we allow too many people, even if it's well-intended, too many people into our culture who do not share the same values and principles that we do. To no fault of their own. But we can't absorb that and convert them into what it means to be an American. So we need to get back to a sustainable input to our system so that we can convert immigrants into Americans. And we also need to be more selective. Okay, we have unemployment in this country to begin with. We need to make sure that we have the right people coming in that are not going to contribute to that unemployment rate. You know, if there are certain skills that we need, and Australia does a great job of this. They vet every potential candidate for immigration to make sure that when that person gets there, they are not a drain on their society, and that they're bringing with them a critical skill that's needed in this country. Okay, so part of this immigration issue is chain immigration. So what happens is we are one of two Western countries still in the world that allows birthright citizenship. Okay, that is something that essentially came, you know, through the 16th Amendment, right, which was essentially bringing the slaves back into the mainstream of our society and giving them voting rights. That's what it was intended for. If you're born in this country, you were automatically a citizen. Well, that has morphed into people coming in from all over the place, dropping a baby here as an anchor, and now because of that baby's by default an American, the whole family gets to immigrate with no consideration of what value they bring, what cultures, what principles they bring. So they become they can potentially be diversion from what we need in our society. The only other country in the Western Hemisphere, or in the Western country that does allow birthright citizenship is Canada. All of the European nations got rid of it over a decade ago. So it's not draconian. Nobody's going to say, oh, shame on you, America. They're going to be saying, it's about friggin' time. You know, the world has changed, and we need to be doing something else. So I can speak all day to the immigration issue. There's a thing called numbersusa.com. They rate candidates on immigration, not just the illegal immigration, but legal immigration. And then only for the top 1%, they give this title called True Reformer. And so I'm a true reformer in Numbers USA.
My daughter's in Sweden, and there she's what's known as a rocket scientist, whatever you want to call her. Every year she has to justify her existence. There's a Swede that wants that job, and they are more qualified. She's back to America. Thus far, she's been there. She's been there 3 years now, but she's on probation 364, 365 days a year. So it's interesting they treat us like that. We welcome everyone with open arms, and sometimes I wonder how it happened that a child born in America to illegals is that anchors you're discussing. That somebody brought that up years ago, and if that could possibly have been done with an Iowa citizen because of their illegal parents, I think that solved a lot of problems, but I think that was knocked down and never brought up.
Yeah, well, President Reagan did amnesty back in the 80s, if you remember, right? So at that point, we said, hey, folks, clean sheet of paper. From this point on, you guys all have amnesty, you're all Americans. I put us on a slippery slope towards liberalism, but never fact, they became Americans. Here we are again, 20x years later, and we're confronted with the same thing. I think we already put people on notice once. That we don't need to do another amnesty issue. There's a question right here.
Yes, sir, I've been reading your literature as you were talking, and you have a whole list of items that you strongly declare that you stand for. What is the most important one of this list to you personally, and is it doable?
Yeah, it's accountability and leadership. It's standing up for what's right. I mean, there's a lot of tangible things on that list, but if you don't put accountability in place first, all the rest of this stuff's not going to happen. So you got to have a representative up there that has that intestinal fortitude to stand up for what's right. I mean, like Ted Cruz the other day, he gets up on the steps of the Supreme Court and makes a statement, right? That's the kind of leaders you need. Whether you agree with what he said or not, that's irrelevant. But you need people that will stand up on the steps of justice on your behalf and speak out. And not worry about the fallout from the establishment. I have no concerns about the establishment.
Recent votes on raising the debt ceiling and the budget, Ryan budget, how would you oppose it?
Yeah, so every time we raise the debt ceiling, it's a national announcement that we're bankrupt, right? We're unable to pay our bills, we've got to raise our debt ceiling, take another loan out. I've never been in bankruptcy myself, been close. I'm a small business guy, right? Every time I make a business decision, I put my house at risk. And that's the big difference between being a corporate executive, and I used to work in a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and a small business guy. Small business guy, we feel the pain immediately. I would not want to shut the federal government down because what happened was it shut down a lot of businesses for that duration too. So airplane companies were not delivering airplanes. Airlines were not getting their maintenance done because the FAA had to be there for all. So all of the safety regulated parts of our industry, it hit the American industry in the billions, right? So what I would do differently there is I would speak with data and make sure that the American people realize who's actually shutting the government down. It wasn't one party or the other. It was both, right? So it was the stalemate because they can't get themselves to stand up and walk over the aisle and come to some sort of compromise. The American people have a lot at stake here, and we need to be able to move forward. There was one other question. I'm sorry.
What was your vote, yes or no?
Oh, to shut the, I couldn't shut down the government. Having lived through what I just lived through in that shutdown, it killed my business for 6 months. So I would not. But I would have fought for a harder deal. You know, I would have fought harder. I would have done things differently. But given that scenario, no, I wouldn't have shut the government down.
And the budget?
The budget, well, I mean, if I'm coming in a special election, or you talk in hindsight, and I had years to work on it. If I had years to work on it, I don't think. If I got up there right now and I had to vote tomorrow on this, I have nothing other than to say that I didn't have the opportunity to negotiate. But the thing is, I'm not going to shut the government down until we have, you know, it's a trickle down bad thing to our economy. So I don't know if that's the right answer, but it's the one I feel passionate about. Pete?
You started out by talking about our drift toward socialism, or rather mad rush toward socialism, and we were already there. One of the ways out of that perhaps is a strict adherence to the original intent of the Constitution.
Yep.
With that in mind, I'd like to ask you 2 questions.
Yep.
One, what do the 9th and 10th Amendments mean to you?
Well, first off, the 10th is like, you know, if we got back to the 10th, our federal government budget would be not a problem whatsoever, because it puts us back onto the states, and the states have the ability to take care of ourselves. And, you know, it gets back into anything like, heck, Army Corps of Engineers in the Caloosahatchee and the Everglades Restoration. If the states get the money directly, then why do we have to go to the feds? Right? And I'm not saying if the states get the money directly from the feds, it doesn't even need to go to the feds in the first place. So the feds have stepped way, way outside the 10th, and we need to bring them back in. So I would get rid of, like, you know, Department of Education is one of the things, Health and Human Services, Department of Energy. I mean, the list goes on. Those probably right there would balance the budget.
Okay, yes, and maybe we need a right turn, maybe even a U-turn toward the Constitution. With that in mind, what thing in the Constitution defines the body or the mechanism by which the final constitutionality
get that. So where in the Constitution does it define the legality of a law?
No, does it say what's the mechanism or the body that's gonna make the final decision about constitutionality?
It's the Supreme Court.
That's right.
Well, you're the constitutional expert on this
Nothing in
one.
the Constitution defines that. The Supreme Court has usurped that. That's why I said the 10th Amendment says anything that's not specifically
Goes
defined
back to the state.
in the Constitution is for the states or the
Right.
people.
So,
Think about that.
I will, and you always cause me to think about these things, and I appreciate that. And that there is what I'm talking about when we talk about constituency outreach, and that's why it's so important, because I know a lot, I don't know everything, right? I have convictions, and I know what my basic principles are, but there's some people that are just a wealth of knowledge that they need to be part of the process. And I won't ignore that. I'm getting signals here, I gotta stop.
You have 4 minutes.
I got 4 minutes? Okay.
Same question I asked last week. Regardless of what kind of health system is in place in the country, whether it's completely private, what you call free market, or a universal on the other side where everybody's included,
Single payer?
what has to happen is the young people have to be in the system paying premiums. That's the only thing that's going to make healthcare work. If not, costs are running out of control. Partly, every administration, doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican, has done things to increase the cost in healthcare through the years. Reagan did it, Bush did it with the prescription drug thing. Reagan signed the law that says you can go to the emergency room and get treatment, whether you have any money or not.
All right.
All these things, and it's just been everything. What really has to happen is that young people have to be in the system. How are you proposing to get them in the system? It doesn't matter whether you like Obamacare or not. You've got to have it.
So assuming that the federal government has a constitutional requirement to provide health insurance, which I don't think it does, but assuming that the people want federally mandated health insurance, which I don't think they do. But taking that direct question is if you're gonna have a process that's dependent on a balanced pool that has at the tail end of it, or actually the beginning end of it, a really healthy set of people, that's how we do Social Security too, right? We pay for it in advance. So if you're gonna have that system, it has to be a viable and controlled system. Now, I'm not a proponent of federalization of healthcare. I don't think that they have a role in it. I do believe the states can get involved in that.
That's not my question, Mike.
I
The
know.
question is how do you
don't.
get people to sign up?
I'm not gonna go there because I don't think you can mandate it. Okay, I don't think it's my role or your role to tell our 22-year-old kid down the street that you have to do this. Okay, that's where I disagree with the whole concept of single payer and mandated stuff. And I know we're gonna agree to disagree at the end of the day on this.
No,
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Car insurance, it's mandated that you have to drive, you have to have car insurance.
You do, but car insurance, driving a car is a privilege, right? So you don't have to have a car. Okay, and the same thing with medical insurance. I don't have to keep myself healthy. I don't have to do preventative maintenance. I could be fat, dumb, and happy if I want to. May not live long, but that's a personal choice, and that's what it means to be an American. I mean, this is not Europe, and I don't want us to go in that direction towards being Europe. This country has such a rich experience and history of being unique, and we need to maintain that uniqueness. And that means we have to put off, even though it sounds good, and I like the idea of everybody having health care, but that's not America.
One
Right
more
over here.
question.
Yeah, just going with what you just said about not nationalizing healthcare. So would you advocate for dismantling the VA healthcare benefits and subject those returning vets to whatever state they land in? They have to qualify for health insurance, get their health insurance on whatever free market available in that state, and forget to dismantle the VA healthcare program?
Absolutely not.
That's a federalized program.
But it's an earned program. It's a promise we made to our veterans when they signed up. When they signed up at the age of 18, we told them that if you get hurt, now Clinton screwed this all up by putting in all these other people that didn't earn access to the VA system. So essentially right now, it's any veteran gets access to the VA. That wasn't the way it was when I joined. It was if you have a medical disability as a result of injury in the military, or you retired from the military, you have access. That was the promise. Okay, the liberals took it too far, and that's why a lot of the spending is out of control. We may have to apply a little bit of tough love and revert back to what it was designed to be, but it was a promise we made, and I think the VA needs to be there. As a matter of fact, it needs to be enhanced. The injuries that are coming back now are so much different than they were when, you know, in Vietnam or World War II. These are brain injuries. You know, we armor these kids up so well that in any other war, they would have died. You know, but this war, they're coming back up here, and we got to get them back on the mainstream. There was one more question. I got hooked. I'll be around as long as you need me today. Okay? I need help. I'm a grassroots candidate. I need help. I'm doing really, really good on the people polls. When you go out and you talk to the people. Okay, I've got donation envelopes back there. I've got yard signs back there. I've got bumper stickers back there. If I can't get your money, I do want your support. I want your support by talking about how cool this dude is, how he has got convictions, he's got passion, and he really is the real deal, and that he's viable. If you can do that, we can win this thing on April 22nd. www.dreikornforcongress.com. Thank you.